Hello everyone, Charcoal here, and welcome back to Char Rambles. Today we're continuing our trip through the many installments of Ninjago. Since we last saw each other, the new series announced in 2022 is now out, Ninjago Dragons Rising. We're about halfway through Season 3 now, and once I finish covering the original series, I do intend on talking about it, but for now, we're looking at the Oni and Dragon era, made up of Seasons 8, 9, and 10. But before we can get into reviewing these seasons, we first need to go over some differences from the previous ones. The second half of 2017 saw the release of the LEGO Ninjago movie made by Warner Brothers. It wasn't canon to the show at all, but it left the showrunners with an interesting dilemma. They now had to find ways to bridge the gap between the show and new fans coming in from the movie while still working within the confines of the show. Number 1. New animation. At this point, Ninjago was produced by Wilfilm, and Wilfilm's animation vendor was Global Digital Creations. GDC had animated the first 7 seasons, but after the drop in quality with Day of the Departed and Hands of Time, GDC was dismissed, and I really don't blame them. Wilfilm's new animation vendor was Zentric Studios, and they would animate seasons 8 through 10. This led to a huge upgrade in quality with smoother lighting and shading, more realistic details, and everything generally looks a lot less like plastic. Season 8's opening scene blew me away with how great it looked. This is some of the best animation I've ever seen in a LEGO show. Ninjago had never looked so good up to this point, and I'd say this is where the visuals peaked until Dragons Rising came out. Number 2. Redesigning the ninja. Starting in Season 8, all of the ninja were given new designs based on their designs from the movie. All of them got new hairpieces, Lloyd has green eyes now, Cole's ghostly scar is now only visible when he's using his powers, Nia gained a mole on her cheek, Kai has some new scars, Jay gained freckles and lost the notch in his eyebrow along with making his hair color way darker, and Zane now has a built-in cloaking device for some reason. Honestly, most of these are an improvement over the originals and give the ninja much more personality, although I really wish they hadn't changed Jay's hair color and kept his eyebrow notch. Related to that, the ninja's powers seem to have been overhauled a little too. A lot of times in these seasons we see them requiring a bit of warm-up to use their elemental powers or needing to draw on the environment around them, but that would kinda stop being a thing by Season 10. And from Season 8 onward, they never use air jitsu or their elemental dragons ever again. It's pretty weird, but you just kinda have to accept it for these seasons to make any sense. Number 3. Lloyd's new voice. After stepping up to the plate as the ninja's leader at the end of Season 7, Season 8 would be focused on a more mature Lloyd, and this came with a brand new voice actor. Up until this point, Lloyd was voiced by Jillian Michaels, but from Season 8 onward, he would be voiced by Sam Vincent, and I think Sam's voice for Lloyd is perfect. This is exactly what I'd expect a grown-up Lloyd to sound like. And number 4, working in Lord Garmadon. The LEGO Ninjago movie had featured Lord Garmadon as the main villain, so now they were obligated to include him in the show again in some way. Just a small problem. In the show's canon, Garmadon sacrificed himself to the Cursed Realm in Season 4, officially died when the Cursed Realm was destroyed in Season 5, and hadn't even been evil since Season 2. So how did they do it? Let's find out. Put simply, Sons of Garmadon is fantastic, Ninjago's best season up to this point. Before I get to Lloyd, I want to talk about the other ninja real quick. Most of them have some noticeable personality shifts. In the first episode in particular, Nia is really judgmental and Jay and Zane are kinda idiots, but thankfully that stops being a thing after that one episode. Kai is more mellow than he used to be, but I think we can call that character development. Kai's short temper was a result of anger from losing his parents and not knowing what happened to them, but last season he found them, and now it's been a year since then, so trauma resolved. Cole is more mature and responsible, which 100% is character development and is openly acknowledged. This season made Cole a way deeper character than he was in any season before this with his flashback to when he met Wu. We learn about Cole's home life following the death of his mother. His father threw himself into his passion for dancing as a coping mechanism and projected that passion onto Cole. Cole hated it and was feeling lost, but then he found Wu, or Wu found him. Wu gave him a new purpose in life, and that's why Cole cares more than anyone about finding him again. And when they finally find Wu as a baby, Cole takes on the role of his parent figure. I f***ing love that. Now let's talk about the big green elephant in the room, Lloyd Garmadon. What this season is a thorough character study of Lloyd. Being the Green Ninja, Lloyd's gotten a lot of focus pretty much every season, but this is the first time since Season 2 when Lloyd has truly been the main character. And Sons of Garmadon takes that character and really makes him suffer. At the start of the season, Lloyd has everything: unearthly powers, public adoration, and a team of friends he can rely on, but by the end of the season, he loses all of it. Which leads me to Harumi, who I'm honestly mixed on. She's a very interesting concept. She lost her parents back during the Great Devourer attack in Season 1 and blames the ninja for not being able to stop it while hailing Garmadon as the true hero. And that makes sense. The public never really saw Garmadon until the Great Devourer attack, and what they saw was Garmadon single-handedly destroying a monster that was too strong for the ninja.
Look, pal, we're the guys that just saved the city from that giant snake.
Am I looking at Lord Garmadon?
And the reveal of Harumi being the quiet one was genuinely surprising, but my problem with her stems from two main things. First of all, she put her own life in jeopardy way more than she needed to for the sake of maintaining cover. At least that led to the reveal of Pixel being Samurai X, that's neat. And second of all, and way more major, is how her twist was handled. The moment she's found out, the entire facade drops and she goes from acting really shy and timid to a monologuing supervillain. And in the very next episode, she suddenly has the edgiest outfit imaginable. The 180 here is so jarring, they feel like completely different characters. Harumi's twist was honestly the only real issue with this season for me, but she did fulfill her purpose of destroying Lloyd's ability to trust people. But once Garmadon himself comes into the picture, I could care less about Harumi. Nothing beats the wise mentor trying to atone for his evil past that we got back in Tournament of Elements, but I personally love this rendition of him too. He's a shell of his former self, but Lloyd keeps clinging to the idea that he could still turn him again. That brings some real tension. The question of could he do it is believably present because we've seen it happen before. And of course, the answer is no. Watching Garmadon tear Lloyd apart physically and mentally with everyone watching is one of, if not the most emotional scene in the entire show. I love it so much. And I don't know if this was intentional, but I think part of the soundtrack during the fight is actually a darker version of the soundtrack that played during Garmadon's sacrifice 4 seasons ago. Take a listen. As much as it hurts to see this happen to Lloyd, it was a humbling his character desperately needed. After Season 3 or so, Lloyd is kinda portrayed as the infallible leader of the ninja who can do no wrong. Even when he starts stepping up to the plate as their master in Hands of Time, the conflict of Lloyd's little arc isn't framed around his leadership skills, but framed around the others not being ready to follow him. That's out of character for them, yes, but it's what the show went with. Lloyd was overdue to be knocked down a peg, and Garmadon was the perfect thing to do it. The biggest surprise of the season, however, is that the ninja lose. They fail to stop Garmadon. He successfully takes over Ninjago, Lloyd loses his powers, and the original ninja plus Baby Wu are marooned in another realm while everyone else thinks they're f***ing dead. This is the first and so far only time this has ever happened, which only makes this season all the more unique and impactful. Sons of Garmadon was a season that took risks. The new designs, nerfing the ninja's powers, the darker tone, resurrecting Lord Garmadon, and ending on the biggest cliffhanger in the show's history. In my opinion, with one exception, all of it paid off. And it resulted in Ninjago's best season yet. Season 8 rightfully goes in the top spot, but I'm sorry to say it won't stay that way for long. Season 9, Hunted, is, in my opinion, Ninjago's best season ever. It was definitely the most ambitious of the original series, having 2 separate plots that take place at the same time. Wu and the original 4 ninja navigating the First Realm to find a way home, and Lloyd and Nia leading a resistance against Garmadon and Ninjago. Before I get into the story, I need to mention the soundtrack really quickly. It is phenomenal. Jay Vincent and Michael Kramer really outdid themselves this season. Take a listen. Now let's talk about the plot. I'll start with the First Realm story. This was the half that was actually marketed in the sets and contained all the new villains in the form of Iron Baron and his dragon hunters. I think the dragon hunters made very fun antagonists. Their whole Mad Max Dieselpunk aesthetic was totally new for Ninjago, with some nice new characters like Daddy No Legs, Jet Jack, and Heavy Metal aka Faith. More on her in a minute. Iron Baron himself isn't anything too special, but I still like him. He's got the whole tribe of hunters under his thumb, touting himself as some fearless leader, but his facade immediately crumbles into fear when the mother of all dragons actually shows up. It's very satisfying, especially when he finally meets his end. The First Realm itself is kinda hit or miss. It's great seeing so many different kinds of dragons, and the lore with Firstborn and the dragon armor is very interesting, but my biggest issue is that this whole realm looks the damn same. No animals other than a dragon here or there, hardly any plants, the whole place is one huge wasteland with nothing in it. How does anything survive out here? One thing I do like is that it's established the Oni are gone with no indication of where they went, which will lead into next season. Faith is our helper NPC for this season, guiding the ninja through the First Realm to find the dragon armor. I like her. She wants to help people, but growing up in a harsh land like the First Realm makes her ruthless regardless of her alignment, leading to a fun dynamic with Wu and the ninja. Speaking of Wu, he's essentially our main character for this half of the story, and they took the time to really humanize him. Since he's still growing back into his old self and doesn't have all of his memories back yet, he's essentially placed on the same level as the other ninja, with them having to guide him through his quest. I love this role reversal, and from this point on it feels like Wu fights alongside the ninja a bit more equally for the rest of the series, at least when the writers let him. Let's touch on the other ninja. Kai's lesson to Wu was confidence, which is ironic when you think back to the pilot episodes when Kai was insistent he wouldn't be a ninja. It really makes you realize how far this character has come. Cole's lesson was responsibility, and they continue the dynamic from last season of Cole basically being young Wu's father figure. Cole and Wu don't get much screen time together for a few seasons after this, but when they do, Cole is noticeably closer with Wu than any of the other ninja besides maybe Lloyd. Jay teaches Wu a sense of humor, but that's not the noteworthy part with him. It's the episode How to Build a Dragon. This episode is special because it's the first time in years Jay's inventive side is showcased after Nia took that role from him, and it's really the last time it's ever seen again until this year in Dragon's Rising. Zane is just kinda there. He had a larger role in Sons of Garmadon, so I kinda understand him taking a back seat here, but with the other three ninja all getting meaningful scenes with Wu, Zane getting left out just feels wrong. I hate to say it, but I think this was where Zane's decline started. He would be in the spotlight less and less, and while the other ninja would get cool or badass moments, Zane's would be much fewer and farther between. It wasn't really noticeable when this season first aired, but in hindsight, yeah. The First Realm story starts off really strong, but the middle kinda drags. It's a lot of Wu and the ninja wandering aimlessly because Wu was lying about knowing where the dragon armor is. I can definitely sympathize with Faith being so pissed when he finally admits it, but thankfully the story ends even stronger than it started. From Wu getting his memories back to when the ninja return home, it's got me right back on the edge of my seat. And the scene of the ninja flying away on their dragons is beautiful, one of my favorite moments in the whole show. But speaking of returning to Ninjago, let's talk about Lloyd's half of the story. After Sons of Garmadon, Lloyd has lost everything, and now he has to lead the resistance against his father just long enough for the other ninja to return. Lloyd was coasting for way too long, and this season really made him prove he can still lead even without his powers. Nia, Pixel, and the returning Elemental Masters played good supporting roles until most of them got captured, but there's one supporting player I need to mention, and that's Mistake. Once just an old tea shop lady from Season 1, now revealed to be an Oni who had turned on her own kind and would end up sacrificing her life just to give Skylar a bit more time to escape capture. The glow-up is insane. Harumi isn't as interesting this season as she was in Sons of Garmadon, but she still has her moments. Particularly when the ninja got Skylar to control Garmadon's Colossus, and Harumi finally realized she was in over her head. She had unleashed Garmadon to get revenge on the ninja for failing to destroy the Great Devourer all those seasons ago, but now her own actions were putting the city in very similar danger. And when she spots a family about to be torn apart just like hers was, she drops everything to help them get to safety. She still gets what's coming to her when the building collapses with her still standing on the roof, but that small moment of redemption right before she died was a great way to bookend her character. I said it was a great way to bookend her character. Once the ninja are back, it's time for the final battle. The season finale, Green Destiny, is widely regarded as the best episode of the series, and I would have to agree. This was a phenomenal episode. In particular, I love how Lloyd defeats Garmadon. Garmadon is fueled by conflict, so Lloyd starts refusing to properly fight him. If this sounds familiar, that's because it's the art of the Silent Fist, taught to Lloyd by Garmadon way back in Season 3. And with Garmadon's powers drained, Lloyd's return. I love that this wasn't some Deus Ex Machina where Lloyd gets his powers back at the last minute and uses them to take Garmadon down. Instead, he wins without them and gets them back as a reward for proving he no longer has to rely on them. Great way to wrap up Lloyd's arc. I did think it was a little weird to just have Garmadon get arrested after the battle was over, but we need him for Season 10, so this still works. Hunted isn't a perfect season. I would even say it has lower lows than Sons of Garmadon did, because at least that season was never particularly boring, but for every step back Hunted took, it took 2 steps forward. The highs of this season are the absolute peak of Ninjago as a franchise, and it's for that reason I can only place Hunted in the #1 spot. But we still have one more season to go in this trilogy. I'm sorry to say, March of the Oni did not quite live up to the hype, owing largely to the fact it was so damn short. It's only 4 episodes, the shortest season yet, and apparently the reason for this was so they could bring the total episode count to 100, the season finale being episode 98 plus the 2 pilot episodes. I think this season could have really benefited from even just 2 more episodes. Let the title card say episode 100. The Oni and their leader, the Omega, are fine as villains, I just wish we had more time to flesh them out. Back in Season 8, it was said that the 3 Oni masks each represented an Oni warlord. Well, here's one. Where are the other 2? The Omega does have one good scene with Garmadon picking apart his insecurities, but that's about it. Something else of note, this season has a few fake-out deaths and a lot of close calls. Sure, they're a good tool to build tension, but when you do it this much, the viewer becomes desensitized to it and stops caring because they've been trained to assume there's no actual stakes anymore. Cole's fall, in particular, was so stupid. The moment it was shown in the trailer, I knew he'd survive, but how did he survive a fall like that? He fell from skyscraper height and was completely fine. How durable is he? And how did the Oni's clouds not affect him for so long? He was holding his breath, so does the fog only freeze him if he breathes it in? It's never explained. I do like all the callbacks made to previous seasons, the Realm Crystal, the Sword of Sanctuary, the Golden Master's armor, all of it. Something I should mention is that this season didn't really get its own sets. It was more of a tie-in with a new sub-theme of sets, Ninjago Legacy, remaking older sets from the first few seasons, and that's why we got stuff like Cole's Earth Driller and the Golden Weapons back. I'm personally fine with the Golden Weapons being brought back for this one season. It feels like a wrap-up of everything so far, so why not? I was confused why everyone was suddenly able to touch the Golden Master's armor, until series creator Tommy Andreasen confirmed on Twitter that enough of its power was drained when Zane sacrificed himself that anyone can now safely touch it. It's a BS excuse, and I wish it was explained in the show, but it gave us a pretty cool Tornado of Creation scene, haven't seen that since Season 1. And the scene with Lloyd talking to the first Spinjitzu Master was really nice too. This was another thing that reinforced the idea that this was, in a lot of ways, a series finale, and given what was coming next, that isn't entirely untrue. I'm honestly struggling to find more to say about this season. It has its ups and downs, but it doesn't come close to reaching the same heights as Sons of Garmadon and Hunted. It all comes out to a season that's just okay, but still makes for a fine finale to the previous ones. I'll be placing it between Hands of Time and Skybound. And that wraps up the Oni and Dragon era. With the exception of March of the Oni, this trilogy was amazing. They made a lot of changes, but I think the fact they came alongside 2 great seasons in a row made the transition a lot easier to accept. This was where Ninjago peaked. Dragon's Rising has come close, but I don't think it's quite there yet. Unfortunately, more change was on the horizon in the second half of 2019, but I'll talk more about that next time when I go over the 11-minute era. Thank you for visiting Charcoal's Den, and I'll see you all in the next video. Special thanks to my supporters on Patreon. If you want to support the channel, you can pledge at the link in the description for perks such as your name in the credits and early access to new videos.